Here's a concerning story. Working in a maternity ward is said to be stressful for young doctors. UCT's Regan Bowden has written a column where he details how health workers in training say they sometimes feel forced to abuse patients. They are citing workplace pressure for their behavior of what is known as obstetric violence. But what's the law around this? For more on this, I'm joined now by Regan Bowden from UCT's Global Survey Unit, and he is joining me to discuss that situation. So, Regan, at a certain level, I was aware of this phenomenon, but you think it's isolated incidents that happen in a corner, in a rural corner of South Africa. So when I read your article, I was actually taken aback to say what I grew up hearing about abuse of women in labor wards is actually something that happens beyond my confined, knowledge of some of these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Lucisbeth. Thank you for having me. I think part of what is so difficult about this problem is that we have such little real data on how prevalent this abuse is in our health facilities. The only things we can sort of lean on are our anecdotes from colleagues from around the country who in the last few days have been so quick to share their stories of witnessing and partaking in this type of violence. But we also have a piece from the Human Rights Watch, which was 12 years ago, where they interviewed 157 women in the Eastern Cape who all, detailed really gruesome, difficult to hear stories about violence at the hands of healthcare workers in maternity wards.
And Regan, part of the opinion piece that you wrote centers around your own experience of this. You talk about an experience you had in one delivery in particular. You're saying it was your only your third delivery that you had, participated in. Pick up the story from there. Why does this one delivery stand out for you in as far as this theme is concerned?
Yeah, I think what's so difficult about healthcare workers in training, when they experience these sorts of things, we really are just at the beginning of our careers. We're in workplaces where we have little to no agency, where we're, almost under the leadership and the surveying of the people who are committing this violence. So our sense of agency in the power dynamics is completely different to what we would like. So it means that when we experience these sorts of things, like, for example, my first experience, my first ever time in a maternity ward, you really don't know what to do.
I truly apologize, and I do want us to pick up the story from that experience in just a few minutes, but I do need to ask you to pause there for a moment, and I'll take you to Boksburg, where the SACP Congress is taking place. Some announcements being made now from the stage.
And Comrade Blade Nzimande got 266 votes. Comrade Webbs got 148 votes. And there was one abstention for the vote of the chairperson. For the national treasurer, we had two nominated comrades, Comrade Joyce Moloi Maropa and Comrade Reniva Fourie. Comrade Joyce got 232 votes. Comrade Reniva got 143 votes. There were no abstentions and there were no spoiled ballots. For the first Deputy Secretary General, we had two nominees, Comrade Madala Masuku and Comrade Kolile Kata. Comrade Madala got 246 votes. Comrade Kolile got 126 votes. There were 3 abstentions. Then for the position of Deputy National Chairperson, we had two nominees, Comrade Tulas Mwesi and Comrade Nomalungelo Gina. Comrade Tulas got 220 votes. Comrade Nomalungelo got 152. There were 2 abstentions and 1 spoiled ballot. So those are the votes, comrades, and I think it's now opportune for all of you to congratulate the comrades. And yes, can the comrades please come and join the comrades in front, please?
All right, so those are the visuals coming through there from Boksburg here in Gauteng. It's the SACP's Congress, which is now concluding the business of electing the rest of the leadership that will lead alongside Solima Paila. Solima Paila, of course, having been elected uncontested as the General Secretary to succeed Blade Nzimande. Blade Nzimande himself not being chucked out altogether from the leadership. He will become the SACP's national chairperson with 266 votes that he garnered there from the delegates that are there. Some of the other leadership positions that were announced there include the position of national treasurer, and that will be Joyce Moloi Moropa. That's the national treasurer who has been elected, as well as the first deputy general secretary being Madala Masugu, who has been elected with 246 votes. So they are singing there, and the leadership, elected leadership, taking to the stage there, and Govan Whittles, part of the team that will be giving you updates there. That's Tulas Nlesi getting 220 votes from the delegates there for one of the deputy positions that has been announced there. So that's how it's looking, the SACP leadership. It seems to me to be about infusing a new energy at least at the top leadership, the General Secretary position is quite powerful in the SACP as well as in the tradition of the unions. So make no mistake about that change with Solima Paela taking to the fore is, quite considerable. It's quite serious business and will signal that he is now in charge in terms of leading the tone of the SACP, but it would seem also at the same time that they do want to retain some of the experience. The likes of Thulas Nxesi as well as Bladen Nzimande, they're being retained, communicates a certain message about what it is that they want to do. Lots of conversations at that Congress about how the SACP relates with what it terms state power. How do they deal with state power? Do they contest state power? Do they insist on being deployed to be part of the leadership in government alongside their ANC comrades? But also this whole idea of a reconfiguration of the alliance. The ANC leads the alliance, the tripartite alliance, but the SACP wants to be, influential. They being called the vanguard of the working class, looking out for working class interests within the ANC. Contest and debate, about how effectively they've played that role over the years, and occasionally then you'll hear the SACP saying that they want to center themselves in conversations around policy and how government is steered.
We still have to continue. We haven't continued our process. May I also just take the opportunity to declare that we have declared the elections free and fair. The observers have so declared.
All right, we'll leave that there for now. Look out for more reports from Govan Whittles and the team that is covering the SACP's Congress. Let's go back to our conversation with Regan Bowden from UCT Global Survey Unit. And Regan, I do apologize. It's in the nature of this business that as news comes in, it always takes, preference and priority. Let's go back to the serious issue around what is termed obstetric violence. You were sharing your experience. I imagine this must have been your first encounter. This was only the third delivery that you had participated in as a doctor in training. Tell me why this stood out and continues to stand out as an experience of obstetric violence.
Yeah, the reality is that unfortunately I have, at this stage in my career, numerous stories that I could have written about on which to center this piece. I chose this story because it really was the first time I had ever seen any violence against a pregnant woman, against a birthing woman. And, to be honest, the first time I'd ever seen a woman being hit. And, as a young person trying to find your feet, that's really, really difficult. We do overnight calls. So this was at about midnight of my first ever call in a maternity ward. And this woman, it was her third pregnancy and her third delivery. And she was getting really far along in the process, but she was getting really tired. Labor is a really intensive process, psychologically and physically. And this woman was getting to the end of her tether. Midwives, they're under a lot of pressure. Doctors in that space are under a lot of pressure because in most areas of medicine, you're caring for one life. In this part, when you're helping with childbirth, you're caring for two lives at once. And at this stage, at least the fetus's life was in danger. So the midwife, in frustration, under the pressure, actually hit the woman who was giving birth. Time seemed to have stood still. It was something that I did not expect at all. And in that moment, you struggle to find the words or the ways to respond in a way that is respectful for the patient, but also understanding the power dynamics that exist between the trainees and the seniors.
Yeah. And what you then do, building from that, Regan, is to talk about the underlying issues, at least from your reading, that could be at play. One of them, you say, is sort of a culture that then develops around the staff in those kind of settings, the healthcare staff in those settings. What do you mean when you talk about a culture?
I think what we would love is in medicine for us to be almost separate from the influences that come in from outside, where we can think clearly and we can make independent decisions. But, we also live in a really violent society in South Africa. So all of us, we experience violence in different ways, and we bring that into the clinical setting. Additionally, the setting of obstetric work is that there's a high throughput of patients. You don't have time to get to know the patients really well. You're under a lot of pressure clinically and physically. You're doing long overnight calls. Your colleagues are frustrated. You are missing colleagues who are gone off sick. You're not well resourced. And all of this burden creates a form of a melting pot in which, almost your worst impulses come to light.
And here's another one that I battled with, the issue around oversight. One imagines that with the kind of regulated environment that we have, in this country, that there would be some kind of oversight. But you are saying that this is not happening in terms of the reports being filed, where incidents such as these would be picked up.
Yeah, Tulisizwe, we have no way of accessing the data about how many people are reporting this kind of behavior in the hospitals. Whether they are reporting or not, we just don't know. What we do know is that the governmental institutes like the Office of Health Standard and Compliance and the Health Ombuds, they do not report on specific incidents, nor will they give us an idea of how prevalent this is in their reporting. So we really are left with, just trying to guess or judge from our own experiences how prevalent this is. And we have a saying in medicine and in public health that what gets measured gets changed. I feel like we're really on the back foot in terms of this problem until we can get an idea of where this is happening, who is being violent to who, and only then can we really have an idea of how to make things better.
Well, Regan, I've got to thank you for at least raising this subject. And as I say, I was vaguely aware of a few instances and a few reports and anecdotes over the years, but I had no inkling that this could be happening at such a broader level, as you are saying, that you've also heard from some other practitioners since you penned that opinion piece. That's Regan Bowden from UCT's Global Survey Unit. He has raised the issue of what is termed obstetric violence. This is when women who are in the labor ward are abused one way or another. Sometimes it's verbal, sometimes it's physical, as Regan was sharing there. You can read his piece on News 24, on the opinions section of News 24 there. It really does call for all of our attention, really, to this now.